Hello Ride On people. So it's Saturday morning, it's 8 a.m. All is quiet, all is good with the world, and today we're off to Hourglass Motorcycles, or Triumph Buford, BMW Buford, for their demo day. And looking forward to riding a couple of bikes I've already ridden to see whether my second impressions have changed at all. First one would be the Triumph Bonneville Bobber. I went to the Brutal Beauty tour back in the spring of that, down in Atlanta, which is where the American HQ is, and that was a really good evening, really lots of fun. Then I got to ride the bike and made a video of that. Check that one out, and I was very impressed, much more impressed than I was, say, with the Harley Sportster 48 or the Harley Roadster. And much as I like the looks of the Indian Scout Bobber, the Triumph fits me that much better. So I'd like to ride that thing again, although it's not without its shortfalls, namely the front brake isn't that strong, and it has a very small tank range. The other bike I'm really looking forward to riding again is the my current crush, I guess, is the BMW K1600B bagger. Got to ride that a couple of weeks ago and made a video of it. Well, two videos actually, initial impressions and then a ride video, so check those out. And that thing is really quite special, and I'm looking forward to riding that again. In addition to that, I'd love to ride the Triumph Street Triple RS particularly, but I'd like to try out one of the 2017 models because they're significantly improved over previous versions, and really anything else that takes my fancy from the Triumph and BMW range that they happen to have on demo. So stick with us and we'll let you know how we get on.
So it was nice to try out the Barber again. I think in terms of its cons, the tank range is woefully too small. It's about 2 gallons, and the front brake is really perfunctory. It's very much kind of adequate, really, even when combined with the firm rear brake. And of course, ground clearance is quite compromised as well. You notice that when going around roundabouts. Ergonomically, it's a little bit awkward as well. It's one of those things you have to try just to see for yourself, really. In terms of the pros, I mean, it sounds wonderful. It's a great, characterful twin-cylinder engine. It's got heart and soul, and its image is just great. It looks really good from every angle. In conclusion, it's probably too impractical for my needs. It is noticeably flawed, but none of that really matters. It's easy to love, and maybe the only bike I've ridden that genuinely has more heart and soul than a Harley, in my humble opinion. In terms of the S1000XR, its cons really are that it vibes in the mid-range. It's kind of supersonic fast. It's a pro and a con, really. Aesthetically, it's a little bit awkward. Awkward looking, I think, and the seat could be better. In terms of the pros, I mean, it's got plenty of guts, that thing. It really has plenty of get up and go. Its brakes are really top-notch draw, very strong monoblock radials. It's very agile on its tall stilts, and its pro shifter works very well. In conclusion, really, the rubber mounted risers which were put in place to quell the mid-range vibes that many owners complained about don't really do the job fully. I'm not particularly sensitive to vibes, they don't usually bother me too much, but these are right where you would like to use the bike on the freeway at, kind of 70, 75 miles per hour in top gear, and that's just poor design really. Also, corners arrive much sooner than you'd like at times. The bike is extremely fast, and it suits a young man who's just coming off a race replica that wants something slightly more practical and comfortable for the road, but doesn't want to give up that performance edge. But it's a little bit too fast for me now. I'm that little bit more mature in age, and the seat locks you into one position, so it's not as easy to move around on as something like a big adventure bike. It's definitely a licensed travelling bike. It's probably faster on the road than a race replica, in my personal opinion. It was great to try the new Street Triple 675R. Of course, no bike is perfect, and it had its problems. The mirrors aren't the best in the world. You wouldn't really want to take a pillion on that bike very far. The tank range isn't the biggest, it's not a full-blown Tourer or anything, and of course the screen is quite low, which is befitting of the bike and the genre really. In terms of the pros, the clocks are absolutely wonderful, really probably the best in the business now. The engine is a jewel. I can see why it's been chosen by the MotoGP series for use next year. It's a really good engine. Feels very refined, very smooth, very well built, and in fact the whole bike feels quality. There's some nice touches on it, like the Triumph logo on the tank is raised, and it has a pearlescent finish as an example of that. And handling wise, it's just wonderful. In conclusion, really, it's a wonderful bike. The handle's better than a Monster on Arlings, and it makes the Speed Triple feel fat and old, actually. Problem is, this particular rider is now Speed Triple, so it's not the best for me personally, but I can understand why a young guy would really love this bike. Clocks are a clarity revelation with easy use joystick and simple menus, very easy to read in bright sunlight. Mr. Garman, please take note. In terms of the K1600B, in terms of its shortfalls, are really that the panniers and clocks could be better, and of course, it's not a cheap bike, and there's no backrest available in the accessory catalogue, which will bother some people or some people's partners. In terms of the pros, super smooth. I mean, this engine is just the smoothest you can buy. It's far more agile than the bike looks. Its comfort is amazing, and of course it has that trick reverse gear, which really every bike should have one once you've tried one. I think the pannier lids would be more practical if they were top openers and more box shaped. Triumph now leads the way with TFT clocks, and they're gooey. The analog clocks are a bit kind of GS dated, and the digital aspects could be easier on the eyes. And that'll probably change in the years to come as the GS inherits TFT screens next year. The Sissy bar is not yet available as an OEM part, which is a mistake, frankly, for the American market. But I suspect people like Corbin are on the case for a pillion backrest and rack. And of course, the bike's not free with every 5 gallons of fuel, unfortunately. But on the plus side, everyone who rides it cannot stop using the adjective smooth. The bike I rode was another low seat version, which, being kind of tall, I wouldn't choose personally, but Jerry, who's much shorter, said he easily flat-footed with plenty to spare. The route we rode had a roundabout that we had to do a 180 around, and a very twisty back road section, and I made every effort I could to scrape the pegs, and it's much more agile than I thought it was, and I didn't scrape out any pegs or anything, so clearance was pretty good. In turns, it was much quicker to turn and required much less effort than my GS Adventure, and that may be down to the smaller front wheel and dual lever front suspension setup. The front and rear suspension complement each other. The low seat is very sumptuous, and cumulatively it makes it probably the most comfortable bike I've ever ridden, I think. I showed Jerry how to use the reverse gear, and his eyes kind of lit up after trying it. He called it a game changer, saying he could reverse into his garage, which is actually uphill with a 90-degree turn into it. Things I hadn't noticed or tried before were the central locking panniers, Fayre handlebar button, which was simplicity itself compared with messing about with fumbled keys at lunch stops with the GSA. Another brilliant thing was the fairing winglets. They pull out from the front of the screen sideways and are substantial in size. They scoop up cool frontal air like 2 flat spade faces, directing the air at your torso. It was kind of 91 degrees today, so very comfortable and very welcome having that airflow. When riding the Triumph, there was a guy in front on the K1600B at that point, and I noticed that the vertical brake lights are very clear and prominent, as are the turn signals at the top of those LED strips. That guy actually kind of half messed up one of the bends and had to brake really hard to get the bike back in line, and I presume that the ABS cut in momentarily as the brake lights flashed briefly, very quickly. Not kind of slowly and continually like annoying aftermarket ones that some Harley Davidson riders fit, but just very briefly and very fast. On face value, BMW got that absolutely right, I think. Talking of Harley riders, I spoke to a couple who rode the bike. Both were literally shell-shocked at just how good a touring bagger could be made, I think. I suspect they'll stick to Harley Davidson. They enjoy the continued social scene with their Harley Davidson riding friends, and I don't think Hogg really tolerates non-Harley Davidson riders tagging along on their social scenes that much. But if either does a coast-to-coast touring trip sometime, I'm sure they'll wish they were on the Beamer for sure. Perhaps more surprising to me was a K1600 GT and a K1600 GTL rider, who both rode the bagger, and both said that they preferred it to their bike. The GT rider thought it handled much better, and the GTL rider thought it felt much lighter. Both of those now want one. I thought Jerry would enjoy it, but as he has a slight prejudice against any motorcycle that's not a GSA, I didn't really seem kind of wanting to trade a GSA anytime soon. But he's now kind of suitably in lust with the K1600B. Suffice that he's trying to work out the script to present to his wife to get the green light to trade in his R9T against a new one, or perhaps a demo bike. Well, that's a possibility anyway. I think Triumph and BMW are making some astoundingly good machines nowadays, and it's very easy to get carried away after a short test ride supported by glowing press / YouTube reviews. So I think it's always good to take a chill pill for a couple of weeks and go back and see if you liked it as much the second time around. For me, with the BMW K1600B bagger, rather than thinking on reflection I praised it a bit too much, I'm wondering if I actually bigged it up enough. For American roads and the type of riding I do, I think it's very probably is, quite simply, the best on-road motorcycle that I've ever ridden.
How was it?
It's really good. Yeah, it's very smooth, very comfortable. Reverse gear is great. I like it a lot.
So we just had a spot of lunch at Aqualand Marina, and that was pretty nice, a bit of barbecue. But this morning we got to ride a number of bikes, and Jerry and I rode 3 bikes in particular. One was the all-new Triumph Street Triple 765, and that's a great bike, very slick, very well sorted, and I think if you want to ride hard on twisty lanes, that's great, and you want to do a track day, it's great. And that was the R model, not the RS and not the base model, the one in between. And I think it was a really slick, good bike. Love the new TFT clock, it's very clear, and even in bright sunshine, really clear. Mr. Garmin, please take note. And I really like that. Also got to ride the Triumph Barber again, the Bonneville Barber, and that's a great little bike. Has its faults, yeah. I mean, the ground clearance isn't great. The suspension is a little bit firm, or the seat's a little bit firm, I should say. That front brake is very perfunctory. It's not the best, but all of that really doesn't matter because it's just got soul and charm just oozing out of it. That bike is so characterful. I think it's even more characterful than a Harley, which is saying something. So great job there, Triumph, on both of those models. And then the business, of course, got to ride the K1600B BMW Bagger again, and that was great. I found out another couple of things. Riding behind somebody who was riding with it, you could see that the rear turn lights and the brake lights are very clear with those vertical LEDs, and also that the flashing of them doesn't occur until like the ABS cuts in, so you have to brake very hard for them to flash. They're not like those annoying aftermarket ones you get with Harleys, and that was great. The other thing was the winglets on the front of the screen. It was nice being able to open those and get some fresh air going, and I really like that. And of course that creamy 6-cylinder engine, I mean, it's just a masterpiece, and I love that bike. It's currently my favourite bike, I think. So let's find out what Jerry thought.
All right, the Bagger, I'm not going to say much about it, only that I can die a happy man now. It's that good. Bye.
So there you have it then, a man of very few words. Jerry just loves that new Bagger as well, and that's saying something because Jerry doesn't really like, well, he loves all motorcycles, but he doesn't really love any motorcycles apart from his GS Adventure, and he's ridden quite a few in the last couple of years, and nothing kind of floats his boat as much as that new K1600B Bagger, and I'll be very surprised if one doesn't join his stable sometime soon.